"Excuse me, sir, but my mom has a ring just like yours." That one sentence, whispered by a 23-year-old waitress during an ordinary dinner in Chicago, shattered everything billionaire Richard Hale thought he knew about his past. The ring she pointed at, a 200-year-old heirloom believed to exist in only 3 copies, one of which had supposedly been buried with his late wife Lillian 5 years ago. But how could a stranger's mother have it? And why did that young waitress look just like him? What began as a casual encounter at a restaurant quickly spiraled into a race across state lines, a confrontation with a woman he believed dead, and the shocking possibility that he had a daughter he never knew existed. Stay with us, because what happens next will make you question everything about love loss and the family we think we've lost forever. "Excuse me, sir, but my mom has a ring exactly like that." Richard Hale froze mid-sip, the wine glass trembling in his hand as he looked up at the young waitress. Her voice was polite, even timid, but the words had landed like a bullet. He glanced at the ring on his left hand, a white gold band crowned with a sapphire and framed by a delicate halo of diamonds, an heirloom passed down through generations of Hales. Only 3 such rings had ever been made. One rested on Richard's finger. One had been lost 25 years ago, along with his twin brother James, during a tragic hiking accident in Alaska. And the third had been buried with Lillian, the love of his life. Or so he thought. It was a quiet Thursday evening at the Black Oak Bistro, one of Chicago's most exclusive restaurants. Richard, now 52, founder of Hale International Resorts, sat alone at his usual corner table by the window. His silver hair was perfectly styled, his suit tailored to perfection. On the outside, he looked every bit the composed billionaire. But on the inside, he was still broken, grieving the woman he'd lost 5 years ago in a fiery car crash. Tonight was the 12th anniversary of the resort chain he and Lillian had built from nothing. He'd meant to celebrate. Instead, he found himself alone again, nursing wine and memories. The waitress who had approached him couldn't have been more than 23. Her dark eyes were wide and uncertain as she noticed how tense he'd become. "I'm sorry," she added quickly. "I didn't mean to be rude. It's just..." The ring caught my eye. "My mom has one just like it. Has for as long as I can remember." Richard's stomach twisted. "That's not possible," he said quietly, almost to himself. She gave a small, nervous laugh. "Yeah, I figured you'd say that, but I swear it's identical. Even the blue stone and the little diamonds around it." He set down his glass, slowly locking eyes with her. "What's your name, Abby?" "Abby Moore." Richard's breath caught. Moore, not Hale, not even close. But the name Lillian Moore once had sounded oddly possible. "Abby, what's your mother's name?" His voice was tight now, controlled but trembling beneath the surface. She tilted her head slightly. "Lillian. Lillian Moore." And just like that, time shattered. Richard's heart slammed against his ribs. His late wife had been named Lillian Hale after they married. She'd died in a brutal highway collision. He'd stood at her funeral, seen the ashes, heard the eulogy. But now, he leaned forward slowly. How old is your mother?" "She just turned 47 last month." Why his throat went dry. That matched perfectly. He forced himself to stay calm. "Would you mind showing me a photo of her?" Abby hesitated, but eventually pulled out her phone. She scrolled for a moment, then turned the screen toward him. Richard stopped breathing. There she was, older, softer. Her hair cut shorter now, but the same green eyes, the same smile that curved slightly higher on one side, the same tilt of the head when she was curious. It was Lillian. The phone slipped from his fingers and hit the table with a soft thud. Sir Abby asked, her brow furrowed. "Are you okay? Do you know her?" He picked up the phone again, staring hard. "Where do you live, Cedarville?" "It's a small town in Ohio, 2 hours from here." His voice dropped to a whisper. "I need to see her. Tonight." Abby took a step back, wary now. "Wait, what is going on?" He looked up, suddenly aware of how he must look, haunted, erratic, desperate. He straightened his posture and took a steadying breath. "Abby," he said, "this may sound absolutely insane, but I think your mother was my wife." She blinked, stunned. "What? That's not possible." My mom's not married. She was. To me. I thought she died 5 years ago. That doesn't make sense. My mom's alive and well. She's never been in any car accident. He slipped off his ring and handed it to her. You said your mother's ring looks like this. Check the inside. Abby peered inside the band. Her eyes widened. Eternal love. She looked up. My mom's ring has the same engraving. Only he and Lillian had known about that detail. Richard's voice broke. I need to go to Cedarville tonight. I'll pay you anything. Just take me to her. Abby hesitated, clearly overwhelmed. If this turns out to be some creepy stalker situation, I'm calling the cops. I promise it's not, but I think your mother may have faked her death to protect someone. And if I'm right, you might be my daughter. Thanks for watching. Sorry for the interruption, but we hope you will help us improve our content in the future. What would you do if a total stranger told you your entire life might be based on a lie? Do you believe in fate, that certain people are meant to reunite no matter how many years have passed? Could you forgive a parent who hid such a life-altering secret from you? 11:06 p.m., Richard's black Audi tore down the nearly empty highway between Chicago and Cedarville. The city lights were long behind them, swallowed by the thick silence of the countryside. In the passenger seat, Abby sat stiff and restless, arms crossed, her mind spinning. I still don't understand how this is even possible, she muttered. Richard kept his eyes fixed on the road. 5 years ago, they told me Lillian died in a car crash. I buried an urn. I mourned for months. But now I realize I never saw her body. It was a closed casket, just ashes and a photo. Abby glanced sideways. You think my mom faked her death? Why would she do that? She's normal, quiet, teaches yoga to seniors, shops at the farmer's market. Richard's jaw clenched. Not when I knew her. Back then she was scared. I was involved in business deals I shouldn't have been in, partners I should have never trusted. They reached Cedarville just after 1 a.m. Abby guided him through the narrow streets of the quiet town, finally stopping in front of a modest brick apartment building. The air was cold and sharp. She's probably asleep, Abby whispered, nerves crackling in her voice. I don't even know how to. Before she could finish, Richard was already out of the car, crossing the sidewalk like a man chasing a ghost. Abby caught up and knocked. A moment later, the door creaked open. A woman in a robe, hair tousled from sleep, blinked in confusion. Richard stopped breathing. It was her, Lillian. She stared at him for a long second, her face draining of color. Richard! The name landed like a thunderclap. Abby gasped. Wait. What? Lillian pulled her robe tighter around her. Come in, she whispered. We can't talk out here. Inside the small living room was dim quiet. Richard stood like a statue, his chest heaving, as Lillian sat across from him. Abby remained standing, too stunned to sit. How long have you known I was alive? Richard asked quietly. Lillian didn't answer immediately. Her voice finally came out in a whisper. Always. I never believed you died in that construction accident. Not for a second. Then why? He asked, broken. Why fake your death? She looked down. Because I found out what you were involved in. Money laundering, threats. A man named Derek Slater came to me and said if I didn't disappear, we'd both end up dead. He said if I stayed with you, he'd make sure neither of us survived. Richard stiffened at the name. Derek Slater, he repeated bitterly. He's the reason everything went to hell. I was 2 months pregnant, Richard. Lillian's voice cracked. I didn't care what happened to me, but I wasn't going to risk our child. The silence that followed was suffocating. Abby stood frozen, her hands shaking. You were pregnant, she asked, barely audible. Lillian turned to her, slowly, tears forming. Yes. You told me my dad died in an accident. I had to, Lillian whispered. He wasn't supposed to find us. It was safer that way. Abby backed away from both of them. So everything I've believed for 23 years was a lie. I did it to protect you, her mother said, breaking down. I didn't know if Derek would come back. I lived every day in fear. And me? Richard asked, voice raw. You let me believe you were gone. I searched for you. I couldn't breathe without you. You would have tried to stop me. And if you had, Derek would have killed you. I couldn't take that chance. Abby paced the room, fighting the urge to scream. So I've been fatherless my whole life. Not because he left, not because he died, but because you chose to erase him. I didn't erase him. I gave you a chance at a life without fear. Richard moved toward Abby slowly. I didn't know you existed. If I had, I would have moved heaven and earth to find you. She stared at him, emotion warring behind her eyes. Then why did it take a restaurant shift and a stupid ring to get you here? Lillian's shoulders shook. After Derek died in a gang shootout 5 years ago, I thought about reaching out. But by then, I didn't know who you'd become. I thought, maybe you'd forgotten me. I never did, Richard said, his voice breaking. I left that world behind because I lost you. I sold everything tied to it, started over. You were the only thing that mattered. For a long moment, no one spoke. Then Abby whispered, I need air. She stepped outside the door, swinging shut behind her. Inside, Richard and Lillian were alone again for the first time in over 2 decades. She has your fire, Richard said quietly. Lillian smiled through her tears. And your stubbornness. She slipped the ring off her finger and held it out. I suppose this belongs to you. He gently pushed it back into her palm. It never stopped being yours. From outside, they could hear Abby's footsteps pacing back and forth on the sidewalk. She deserves the truth, Lillian said. She deserves a family, Richard replied. Even if we have to build it from scratch. Outside, Abby stood beneath the porch light, trying to steady her breath. Inside, 2 people sat in the wreckage of what they once had, hoping for a second chance. Thanks for watching. Sorry for the interruption, but we hope you will help us improve our content in the future. If you were Abby, would you walk away from the family that lied to you, or take the risk to rebuild what was lost? Let me know in the comments. Walk away, some scars run too deep. Rebuild, because sometimes love deserves another shot. 6 months later, the rooftop of the Hale Signature Hotel in downtown Chicago was glowing under a sea of string lights and soft jazz. A light breeze stirred the linen tablecloths and champagne glasses clinked as laughter floated in the air. Tonight wasn't just another corporate gala. It was Abby's 24th birthday, but more than that, it was the first one she celebrated with both her mother and father. She stood near the edge of the terrace, her navy blue dress shimmering under the moonlight, a nervous smile tugging at her lips. Across the patio, Richard watched her with quiet pride, holding a small velvet box in his hands. Beside him, Lillian adjusted her shawl, her eyes never leaving their daughter. She looks like she belongs here, Richard whispered. She does, Lillian replied. She always did. She just didn't know it yet. It hadn't been an easy 6 months. At first, Abby had refused to speak to either of them for weeks, but slowly, painfully, and with many late-night conversations and more than a few tears, she began to open up. Trust didn't rebuild overnight, but brick by brick, they were laying the foundation. Abby had quit her job at the diner and with some hesitation agreed to take a scholarship offered by Richard to study hospitality management at one of the best programs in the country. She was thriving. As guests mingled, Richard made his way to her and held out the box. There's something I want to give you. Abby opened it and gasped. Inside was a ring not identical to the family heirloom, but clearly inspired by it. Rose gold, a pale sapphire at its center. On the inside, engraved in tiny script, "To New Beginnings." I had it made just for you, he said. It's not a legacy ring, it's your own. Abby's eyes filled. She looked up at him. Dad. It was the first time she had ever called him that. Richard blinked, quickly nodding. I love you. She threw her arms around him, and for a moment all the years lost dissolved in that single perfect hug. Across the terrace, Lillian watched them and wiped a tear. Moments later, Richard and Abby walked over together. Ready, Abby asked. Lillian nodded. Abby picked up a glass and tapped it lightly with a spoon. I'd like to say something. The room quieted. A few months ago, I thought I was just a girl from a small town with no father and no future. I never imagined a ring, just one familiar-looking ring, would flip my entire world upside down. A soft laugh rippled through the crowd. But here I am. Tonight I stand between the two people who gave me life and gave each other a second chance. We're still figuring things out, and I know we have a long way to go. But the truth is, the best families aren't perfect. They're the ones who choose to show up again and again, even after everything falls apart. Guests clapped warmly. Lillian reached over and squeezed her daughter's hand. Richard raised his glass. To second chances. Lillian added, to love that survives anything. Abby smiled. And to all the families who find each other when they least expect it. 3 years later, a small intimate wedding took place on a vineyard in Northern California. Surrounded by only a handful of friends and close family, Richard Hale and Lillian Moore were married again. This time there was no fear, no secrets. Abby, in a pale lavender dress, walked her mother down the aisle. She stood proudly as her father said his vows, her mother's hands trembling with emotion. After the ceremony under the twilight sky, Abby gave a toast. My parents lost everything once, but somehow they found their way back to each other and to me. That kind of love, that kind of faith. It doesn't just survive, it transforms. The applause was quiet but heartfelt. Back in Chicago, life moved forward. Richard had turned over much of his hotel empire to a charitable foundation, keeping only 2 boutique properties for their family to run. Lillian now headed the foundation, offering support to families torn apart by trauma secrets and violence, families who, like hers, needed a second chance. Abby graduated with honors and now managed one of the Hale hotels, combining her father's strategic mind with her mother's warmth and intuition. She carried herself with the quiet confidence of someone who had walked through fire and come out glowing. One evening over dinner on the rooftop of their family home, Abby lifted her glass. You know what still blows my mind, she said. All of this started because I noticed a ring. Richard smiled. Fate has a funny way of nudging us. Sometimes, Lillian added, the things we lose come back when we least expect them. And sometimes, Abby said, they return when we need them most. They clinked glasses, and in that moment they were not 3 people broken by time, but a family imperfect, scarred, but finally whole. Thanks for watching. Sorry for the interruption. But we hope you will help us improve our content in the future. What do you think of this story? Would you have forgiven the lies to reclaim your family? Do you believe that love, whether romantic or familial, can survive decades of silence and separation? If this story moved you, comment 100 below to show your support. Tell us, what country are you watching from? And if you believe in second chances, family reunions, and healing, share this video so more people can feel the hope you felt today. Because sometimes a single ring can unlock the miracle of a lifetime.